Welcome back, guys, or if you're new to my channel, this is Automotive Anonymous, and that's our 2025 Subaru Forester. It's a premium, and it's in crystal white pearl, and today's video is basically going to be the 1,000-mile update on the Forester. We've owned it for actually almost 2 months, well over a month and a half at this point, and put about 1,100 miles on it. It's gone across the state. It's gone off-roading. I've left it dirty just for this video, also to show you guys what a dirty crystal white pearl Forester looks like. And it's done really well. We're really impressed with it. This video is basically just to give you guys an update on it and what our thoughts are, what we've experienced in it in over a month and a half so far. And if you guys are maybe considering buying one of these new 6th generation Foresters, what can you expect? Hopefully your experience is as good or better than ours. And if you get anything out of this video, please consider liking this video. Comment your thoughts and opinions below and what you've experienced in your own Forester, Subaru, or other crossover ownership. And with that said, let's get right into this 1,000-mile update video. I know a lot of you guys watch a lot of my Subaru videos, but there's also a lot of new people every time, so I'm really going to try not to be too redundant for those of you who watch regularly, and I really appreciate you guys doing so. But a few things I want to mention right off the bat with this is I really like it. The LED headlights and fog lights across the board on these new Foresters, really cool. Something else I've noticed with the LED headlights is when you fire it up, and now that they have steering responsive headlights on these, it doesn't just go left to right like my Outback does. It actually does kind of an up, down, left, right display. It's a little bit more theatrical, which is kind of cool. But after 1,000 miles and not having washed this or taken it through a car wash or anything since, you can see there's a lot of bugs. And even on crystal white pearl, which I do like white colors or light colors on vehicles, because I think they're a little bit more cheery than dark grays and blacks, but there's also nothing wrong with those other than the fact that they show dirt, they show scratches and clear coat imperfections a lot worse than something like this. But after 1,000 miles and a lot of 80-mile-per-hour interstate and 65-mile-an-hour highway, there's a lot of bugs on the grill. There's no front-facing camera on this one like the Wilderness is likely going to have in the touring trim level, which I have that done, but I don't have that video public yet. It's on my membership program. If any of you guys want to sign up for that, I have about 20 videos on there currently. But 1,000 miles, the clear coat, you can't really distinguish between that and the white paint. I don't see any scratches, at least not in the covering of dirt and dust that this has on right now, and then kind of the overcast day. But I just think that the white color on these looks so good. The side mirrors on our Premium are kind of gray, and with the window tint, it just looks really good. You can actually kind of see that the badge on the back, the all-wheel drive on the D-pillar, really does actually stick out. It's not just like a sticker. But overall, I think this looks really good. And in 1,000 miles, you know, there's no curb rash, there's no accidents, no incidences. I just think it looks really good. Rain, snow, shine, dust, anything that happens to it, light colors look really good. And if any of you guys are wondering, this is the factory window tint on the back, which is probably like 25%. And then on the front is 3M color stable, 35% because that's what's legal here. And it has really done a good job to reduce heat and glare in the vehicle. That paired with the AC on this really makes for a cool ride. So I actually often will have to turn down the AC on this just because with all the tint, even though there is a lot of glass, there's still a lot of light coming through, and it is 35% up there too. It just really actually gets to be pretty cold. And then having the vents in the back seat make it pretty cold back here as well. Most vehicles these days do have rear vents, but the Forester's AC system, I mean, maybe because it's new and the refrigerant is brand new stuff, or it's just better than my Outback. My Outback can make you cold, but this thing can make you shiver. It's also really nice that I don't think it actually caught on camera, but I turned this vehicle on for the accessory power about 10 seconds ago, and Apple CarPlay has already connected. So I don't have Android Auto. I'm assuming it hopefully connects just as well, but I do love that this was kind of like my Miata in that once you get it in, once you fire up the vehicle, within 10 or 15 seconds, your phone is connected. It's already playing what you had set on the speakers last, and it's just a really nice touch. The speaker quality is not as good as the upgraded system in the Limited and the Touring I've driven, but honestly, the windows seem to do a really good job. It doesn't look like it's dual pane, but the clarity in this Forester is just really nice, so even the bass speakers sound decent. The power on this is actually pretty adequate around town, but keep in mind, if you guys are new to my channel, that I always GPS test vehicles 0 to 60 because the density altitude where I'm at varies between about 2,000 feet in the winter up to about 8,000 feet in the summer. So a naturally aspirated vehicle like this that might be rated 0 to 60 at sea level on a cold day, maybe 7.5 or 8 seconds, where I'm at, they sometimes do as bad as 10 seconds or more, and that's just with me in the vehicle. So the power around town is totally adequate, but taking it on the interstate going 80 miles an hour, and say if you're going uphill and there's a semi and you want to pass the semi and get back up to speed, it is going to struggle a little bit. And that's with the vehicle not even completely loaded down to the 900-pound max payload capacity that this has. And that's not with towing 1,500 pounds either, which is its tow rating. So the power plant is totally fine around town, even at pretty high density altitude. But if it is weighted down and you are going uphill and you're towing or you're passing, when you're in a combination of those factors, that's when this cannot compensate nearly as well as it can around town. But around town with the gearing, the CVT, it does a really good job. And before I drop the hood, that does just have a little prop rod. It doesn't have shocks or anything. It is worth mentioning that for how dirty this vehicle is, underneath, even though it doesn't have weather stripping everywhere, it actually has done a pretty good job so far of keeping the dirt out. I'm surprised it looks this clean after about 1,100 dirty miles so far. When we took this on a little bit of a road trip a couple weeks ago, I did notice that the 30-something cubic feet of room that this has back here is definitely not as noticeably useful as our Outback, because it's a lot taller and it's a lot wider at the top versus having the extra foot of length. So if you really are going to be loading this down, you're probably going to notice that your cargo capacity goes a lot further on the Outback than on this. But for how little stuff we usually carry, being mildly minimalistic, it does just fine. And this is still much more spacious than, say, the 2019 Crosstrek that I used to have. But as it's lowering, look at all the dirt that's seeped through. And then back here, there's quite a bit of dirt as well. But overall, I think it looks really good, especially when it's dirty. And I'm assuming all the black plastic cladding that's on this and the badging and everything is probably not going to fade in the sun too much. I just did the 40,000 mile update video on my Outback Wilderness, if you haven't seen that, and about half of its lifespan has been spent outside, and the black plastic cladding looks just fine. It doesn't look sun faded or anything at all. And over the lifetime of the vehicle, we have not reset the trip, so the trip is now over here versus I think the older Foresters that had it over here like my Outback. But when I go to trip B, you can see the average MPG is 29.3, which when I calculated this at the pump, it was about one full mile per gallon generous. So 28.3-ish. Not bad, especially when there's been a lot of idle time over the life of this so far and a lot of around town driving. Overall, I think we're both really happy with the Forester. This was kind of the vehicle that we planned to get for about 2 years, what we assumed would be replacing my wife's Chevy Cruze, because after 8 years, that vehicle served its purpose and it no longer was big enough, practical enough, safety-oriented enough compared to this. I think about half of Subaru's commercials that they post do relate to animals and dogs and things like that in the forest, but the other half are basically the braggadocious claims about them having the most top safety picks of any vehicle. And I really do appreciate that Subaru is so focused on safety and that they really do emphasize that so much. Even to the fact that a few years ago they put LED headlights on the base model of the Forester, and now all new Subarus come with LED headlights, which on Subarus are really bright. I've had LEDs on other vehicles, I've driven other vehicles with them, and they're just not up to par like what these ones are. So I think that paired with a lot of the other standard safety features that these have, even if you go base model for $30,000, I think that's a really good option. And a lot of the reason why so many people buy Subarus, that paired with the all-wheel drive system, which in my area, we get snow maybe 4 months of the year or about a third of the year. So it's worth having a really good all-wheel drive system for us. Last year, I did take a few different Subarus out to test their all-wheel drive system, whether they had the stage 1 or 2 X mode, as well as the base models that don't have X mode. And I'm really excited to see how this one does. I don't anticipate that these basic Geolandar all-season tires are going to be fantastic and probably last more than 40,000 miles tops. But I think for this first winter, when we have a few thousand more miles on it, I think it's going to be really fun to drive and really fun to show you guys how well it does. And even on my mild off-road course that I did a few days ago, I thought it did a really good job. If you guys want a video of something like that, I can always go back out and film one next time and talk about how well it did. But with the short wheelbase, you know, with the square planted stance, this is just a really nice handling vehicle, especially at low speeds. It doesn't feel as stable as the Outback or the Ascent at interstate speed, but how often are you going to be driving interstate speed? And it's not bad, it's not sketchy by any stretch of the imagination, it's just not as stable as one of those bigger, heavier vehicles. If I'm being honest, and I lived in Texas or Southern California or an area that just doesn't regularly get a lot of snow, like this region, I probably wouldn't consider a Subaru, especially if I wasn't as safety focused, but I do physical therapy as my day job, so it's hard to overlook how important safety in a vehicle is. And it's hard to overlook the all-wheel drive system, especially when I've experienced that driving Outbacks and my Crosstrek for the last 4 years or so. Because when I switched from my Toyota trucks and my FJ Cruiser, those just do not do as well, even in four-wheel drive. They're heavier, higher center of gravity. They just don't handle the same, and it doesn't feel like as sophisticated as a system. It's gonna be a lot better off-road, but on-road in slippery conditions, I'm seriously a believer of Subaru's all-wheel drive system and just how good it is and why we currently own 2 Subarus in the family. But if I didn't live in this type of area, if I wasn't as safety focused, I probably wouldn't buy one of these. I do understand why something like the RAV4 outsells the Forester about 3 to 1 on average per year, and why a lot of the other front-wheel drive focused crossovers also do really well. But the Forester in the Pacific Northwest, in Washington, Oregon, Idaho, the states that get a lot of snow, these really shine, and I'm pretty impressed with ours. And if you're still listening, let me share 2 cool little features of the new Forester with you, and then we'll wrap this video up. Under here, a lot of you guys have been asking what this little rectangular plastic square is, and a few of you guys have commented that this is for your battery. If you have a smaller aftermarket battery that needs the height adjustment compared to what the factory battery has, this will sit underneath your battery to lift it up high enough to where the 2 terminals can connect to the cables. So that's kind of cool. And then one of you guys commented just a few weeks ago that when you had your headlights turned off and you put it into drive at night, the vehicle actually still had the headlights on, and that sounded kind of funky. That sounded like a software tuning issue or maybe a one-off case. But in my garage, I haven't tested this at night yet, but in the garage I did turn it from auto to off, and the headlights turned off while I was in park, but then when I put it into gear to pull out of the garage, the headlights came on even though it was on off. So that's kind of a cool feature. I'll mention that again in another video once I've done some more testing, but kind of interesting that Subaru doesn't want you to drive with your headlights off at night, even if you have the stock turned off. So overall, I think the Forester, especially our Premium, it just feels like a really substantial vehicle, especially for about the $35,000 that ours stickered for with the few options that it has. It's good. I don't really have any complaints. It has only exceeded my expectations, and in the first 1,100 miles, there's been no issues like you expect. Thankfully, this first year of the generation, it's still assembled in Japan, where they're known for assembling Foresters. You know, it's basically just a revision over the last generation, at least until the hybrid system comes out next year. And overall, it's just a really good vehicle, and one that I strongly recommend you guys check out for yourself. Always test drive them. Test drive them on the interstate at highway speed. Do an acceleration test, a braking test. Do all the things to make sure that you are buying the right vehicle. But if you're still listening, thanks for checking out my video. Thanks for watching my 1,000-mile update. Like this video if you got anything out of it. Comment your thoughts and opinions below. Subscribe if you haven't and you want to watch more videos from my channel. And until next time, I wish you guys the best. See ya. Take care.